this is one of the biggest reasons I had weight loss surgery. And this is one of the darkest places in my mind and in my past, because after you find out that you have an incurable autoimmune disease, you don't really see yourself being intimate, let alone in a long-term relationship with anyone. Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So this subject is going to be a little bit rough. I know it's going to be a new experience for me because I haven't been on camera before and spoke about this subject in particular. There was a post that I made, I want to say maybe a little bit more than 5 months ago on my Instagram, about a skin disease that I had suffered with for about 12 years. And I really just want to start off this video as transparent as I can. You guys know that that's something I promise to be as often as I can with you. And so jumping right into it, I want to talk to you guys about my experience with HS, otherwise known as Hidradenitis Suppurativa. Some of you guys have never heard those two words put together or have any idea what it is. So what is HS, or Hidradenitis Suppurativa? It is a chronic skin disease where cysts and boils develop in areas that the skin has contact with itself, or in folds in particular. For me, I dealt with very, very deep boils and cysts in between my thighs, in between my buttocks area, on my bikini line or the groin area, underneath the breast tissue, especially in the armpits. I've also experienced flare-ups in the folds of my belly, underneath my rib cage. So why I want to talk about this in particular, why I want to talk about it today, this is going to be a year for me where I look into some plastic surgeries, especially for my underarm area and in between my thighs. And so much of the reason behind those procedures for me has to do with my HS scarring, or something called a sinus tract. Other people might know it as tunneling scarring. So basically, to give you more information on this disease in particular, so many people have it and have no idea they have it. So many people feel like they are alone and they're the only ones. You might have experienced what you thought was just an ingrown hair in between your thighs before, or in between, you know, quite honestly, the butt cheeks or under the boobs. But the armpits seem to be the most prevalent area that HS flare-ups occur. And I kind of want to tell you my story. This is not something that has been glamorized, even when it comes to talking to your dermatologist. You know, a lot of dermatologists know about it now, but when I was growing up, my dermatologist had no answers for me. My primary care physician, I saw several estheticians as well. No one knew what it was. So it took about 7 years for me to be properly diagnosed with Hidradenitis Suppurativa. And my story began at 15 years old. I was diagnosed with something called a pilonidal cyst, and it was right at the tip of my tailbone, kind of where my butt crack begins, in that little pocketed area. I had ridden my horse vigorously that summer. I had gone to several events with my friends, and I had spent a lot of time in the saddle. I love horseback riding. And so I kind of thought that it might have been from riding so much, maybe just an infected hair follicle. So I remember going to urgent care for the first time, and the urgent care that I had went to, their physician on staff let me know before we did the draining procedure that he felt it was unsafe to localize the area with anesthetic. And his reasoning behind that was because it was too close to the spine and he was concerned. So he let myself and my mom know at the time that I was really just gonna have to kind of grin and bear it. At that time, I was laid on my belly on kind of like a bed/bench in urgent care. And he told me to grab a hold of the handlebars that were underneath the bed. That made me really nervous. And they gave me a piece of gauze to bite down on. I quite literally felt the cold of the scalpel and immediately felt the incision, but started to feel some relief when they expressed the cyst. It was green on the inside. It was very, very, very infected, and it was very deep. The doctor held up, after the procedure, the size of his fist, and he said the cavity was so large that they had to use a wick packing to pack it from the inside out. So basically, that experience at 15 was pretty crazy, especially having no local anesthetic, and we were really frustrated to find out when we talked to my primary care physician that that procedure could have gone differently. And it was pretty traumatizing for me. I had to go back every 2 to 3 days to have my cyst repacked. But again, there was no official diagnosis outside of just the cyst and that one isolated incident. Fast forward about 6 months, and I started noticing what I thought were shave bumps on the inner part of my inner thigh. And they began to increase just in frequency, about how many flares I would experience in a month, maybe 4 or 5. At the time, again, I would never put 2 and 2 together. It literally took 7 years before I was properly diagnosed. So I would end up having them so frequently that I would drain them myself. I'd end up in a lot of pain. They would get so inflamed that, you felt like you couldn't walk because you would be so uncomfortable because sometimes the cyst wouldn't be ready to drain or something like that. And oftentimes they were really hot to the touch. So I was always so afraid that I had another infection. But when they would drain, I had them tested even, by several other urgent care visits, and there was never any bacteria found in them. There was never any MRSA. They are not contagious. I feel like I want to get, this is hard, you guys, because this is something I haven't actually talked about on camera, and there's a lot of really dark memories for me here. And I also have had so many people reach out to me regarding the one time that I did talk about it on my Instagram and share with me their very personal, really heartbreaking experiences with HS. And so, when I say they're not contagious, and there's an emotional kind of zing on me right now, is because so many people feel that they caught this or it's their fault. And this is a autoimmune disease, and unfortunately, there is no cure for it. So I had gone to urgent care several times in the first year since my pineal cyst with new flare-ups. So again, they would start in between my thighs, and then they would move to inside my groin and my bikini line. And again, you assume that these are areas that you shave, so you might end up with ingrown hairs and things like that. The frequency, though, was starting to get really, really aggressive. And since the pilonidal cyst, these definitely didn't seem anywhere near the severity of going through that. But again, they were starting to get really, really painful. There were times where it was really hard for me to walk. It was hard for me to leave the house with a large cyst that was inflamed and not just want to drain it as soon as I could. And they became so frequent that I would totally bypass going to urgent care and have them tell me to put a hot and cold compress on it. Basically, every time I would go in, it would always be the same thing. They would try and give me a steroid injection, a topical antibiotic, an oral antibiotic, and nothing was working. Absolutely nothing was working. What I know now, which I had no idea then, is unfortunately we have not yet found a cure for hidradenitis suppurativa. However, I am going to tell you about my personal experience with remission and how I achieved that, and hopefully that might help you guys out. I'm praying that it'll help some of you. But basically, I had really struggled moving into my 16th year because I was in my first relationship and my inner thighs were riddled with boils and starting to develop scarring from my little procedures that I would perform on myself. I would take a thicker sewing needle and I'd sit on the side of the bathtub and I would just try and drain them myself. It became kind of a running joke in my mom's house that, Cammie, you left blood on the side of the tub again, you know, are you hacking on yourself? And it really wasn't that big of a deal to my family, but it was an area where I experienced a lot of embarrassment, a lot of shame. And I remember going to a car wash that one of my girlfriends down the street was putting on with her high school. And I remember sitting in the parking lot with everybody after it was over, and we were all just sitting on a truck bed, and all the girls were wearing shorts. And I remember looking over, and one of my girlfriends, I saw that she had a breakout, but I didn't dare say anything. But in my head, it gave me a little bit of comfort that somebody else might experience what I experienced. So I didn't really think too far into it. I just thought that I really struggle with shaving, and it's because I had bigger thighs that would rub. And so I was like, oh, it's no big deal. So fast forward to my first year of marriage. A lot of you guys know that I got married at 17 years old. It's a totally different video, but I got married really, really young. And my first year of marriage, I put on about 65 pounds. I had worked for a fast food restaurant. I won't say which one, but basically this fast food restaurant would send, all this food home with their employees at the end of the day instead of throwing it out. And I gained about 65 pounds, and my HS started to really, really become more aggressive. At that point, I experienced my first boils underneath my armpits. I am still very scarred to this day. I have something called a sinus tract, or otherwise known as tunneling, where I would try and drain the cyst in one area and it would come out another. And they're very, very deep tracks to this day. I've had to switch my deodorant several times because even though I'm in remission, those scars are still there. So they can become impacted with like a cream-based deodorant especially. I really, really recommend people use a natural deodorant. My favorite brand is Schmidt's deodorant. So I'll link that in the description box so you guys can pick that up. If that is something that even the slightest bit can help you out, I definitely want you to pick that product up. But moving forward, and oh God, I feel like this is the part of my story where I try and stay as strong as I can, you guys, but this is very, very vulnerable for me. My first year of marriage was very, very difficult to kind of explained to my husband at the time what was going on. And for a while it was okay because the boils were few and far between underneath my armpits. And it's not like I was constantly just like raising my arms up, you know, around him. So they were easier to conceal. And the one in my inner thighs, you know, they were higher up in the inner thigh, maybe above, well, not maybe, they were above the short line. So again, kind of easier for me to conceal. This is where things started to get bad. And this is where some really ugly, just give me grace, some really ugly memories start flooding back for me here. And it takes me to a darker place, but you guys know I do this for you. I know there is somebody watching this video right now, either already in tears or relating to this in a way that they never thought they would, and I'm doing this for you. There came a time in my marriage where the HS had spread to in between the buttocks, and there came a time when my husband would no longer be interested in a sexual relationship with me because, in his words, he felt that outside of my weight gain, he didn't need another reason to be unattracted to me. I remember the day he said that to me as I was sitting on the left side of my bed, and he had walked in and caught me trying to drain one of the cysts on my inner thighs, and he said, "That's disgusting. Stop picking at your thighs, at your pimples. I don't need another reason to be unattracted to you." Now, he had seen the boils and the flare-ups at times when we were intimate and made comments here or there. But as I gained weight and as I fell deeper into depression, the HS flares became more frequent. It's not anything that you did. You are not dirty. Some people with HS, quite literally, are some of the cleanest people ever when it comes to their hygiene, because we are constantly afraid of being infected. I worked in a skilled nursing facility, and I had to go into contact isolation rooms and care for my patients on a day-to-day basis. I was scared to death of contracting MRSA, but I was quite honestly out of sick time. So I would go to work with bandages that would be soaked in blood and pus. The bandages would sometimes just fall off, and I'd have to kind of redo everything in the bathroom at work. And, you know, thank God I had some amazing treatment nurses where I worked who would help me with my condition. I'm so thankful for them. They know exactly who they are, one in particular. I want to share another experience with you guys. And the reason I do this is not to seek attention. This is definitely not the way you'd want to seek attention, but hopefully give you guys my hand to hold over this, because this is really hard to walk through alone, and I did. Fast forward, after my divorce, I had experienced intimacy with another relationship, and before long, the boyfriend I had at the time had run his hand over my bikini line area, and at that time I had a flare-up right in the crease, and God, this sucks. This is hard. Sorry. I'm sorry. This sucks. Okay, come on. He had asked me if I had an STD, and to be more specific, he asked me if I had genital herpes. And it's not his fault. He had no idea. I mean, what would you say? I mean, you know, if you've gone through sex ed, you know to be safe. And if you see something weird or you feel something weird, you know, better to be safe than sorry. I tear up because in my previous experience and just thinking, God, like, please just heal me. Just heal me of this. Like, what can I do? I had read studies. I had changed my diet. I had gone up and down. Nothing was working. And at this point, I was so desperate for things to change that I had sought out a surgeon that specializes specifically in people who had my condition. I was diagnosed, I believe, at 23. With Hidradenitis Suppurativa. So finally I received a diagnosis. The same day you find out that there's also no cure. So the next 5 years for me were really, really difficult. I want to share another very personal experience with you guys, and I need someone to help me share it. So, come on in. You guys, this is my amazing husband, and for those of you who have not met him, this is Jordan. And he's usually behind the camera. He's an amazing videographer and encourages me every step of the way through this process. And Jordan has been around since 2015. Mm-hmm. And I was my highest weight when we dated, and was currently at the worst stage of my HS. And I remember experiencing so much fear when we first started dating that you would see my cysts, that I was very standoffish, even though he was the most wonderful man. I mean, we connected on so many different levels. And I remember there were times where I was just pushing him away, and he could definitely feel it, and he had no idea what was going on. And he worked really hard on getting me to let my guard down. So you ended up telling me, I think after we got married, that because I haven't really talked about my HS very much, even since we've been married. And,
right.
You know, I just felt like it was something that I had gone into remission and I had kind of come to grips with. It was on its way out of my life, and I was so thankful. I didn't really want to bring it up a lot. But when I was talking to you, you said that you had actually, despite my trying to hide it from you, you had actually noticed what you thought was acne on my legs or on my butt. Like, do you remember?
Yeah, no, I do.
Like, what happened? Like, what was going through your head when you saw that?
I mean, I struggled with acne a lot as a kid. So when I saw it, that's automatically what I thought. And, had a lot of acne on my back and different spots in this area. So that's honestly what I thought it was. And yeah, I mean, it didn't gross me out. So
you were so kind to me. Like, yeah. I seriously, like, I thought maybe that he just like didn't notice it and didn't see it. But like, you didn't judge me. You were never ugly to me about it. You never said anything. You never purposely like embarrassed me. And I think that's one of the reasons that I grew so close to you so quickly, because I was able to let my walls down. But I think like there were times that he didn't realize that. He would just say, why won't you let me touch you? He would try and touch my thigh, and like, what did I do?
Yeah, she would always grab my hand and like move it away or try to cover herself. And
this is tough, man.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, guys are observant. We work on cars, we do all that stuff. Like I don't know, we're visual. So like, it was weird to me from a guy's perspective, because I'm like, I already know that you have those, that acne, or what do you call it? HS. Yeah, I already knew. And you were like trying to hide it from me. And like, I don't know. It was.
You didn't care.
Yeah, I was always trying to like move her hand out of the way. I was like, stop that, you know.
You just love me anyway.
Yeah.
I love you so much.
Aw.
Like, thank you. Thank you for your kindness then and your kindness now. I want you guys, by bringing my husband in, there was a point behind that. I want you guys to understand that I was in bad relationships, that there are good people that will accept you, flaws and all. And Jordan learned about my condition, that it wasn't my fault. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people that were overweight that looked just like me and had no idea what I was talking about. And I'm very, very thankful today because I am in remission for about 2.5 years. His relationship with me is very different this time around. I had to do a lot of soul searching. I had to put my health at the forefront of everything else in my life to where we can have this type of relationship where I can be present with him. I can love him for who he is and vice versa. And we had to kind of go our separate ways at the time and just go find out who we were. But it wasn't through or for any lack of love, truthfully, you know?
Yeah, but I think your man already knows your imperfections. And if he loves you and you feel that love, don't be embarrassed. Like, I think confidence is sexy. And
I faked it.
yeah, you might need to fake it. But you know what? Like, when you finally, like, even if you have to fake it, like, when you let your walls down, I know for me, like, the more you've let me in, the more, like, the deeper my love grows for you, you know? And that's, because, yeah, we can feel it, you know? We can feel, you know, when you guys are holding back, you know? And it's, yeah. And I understand why. I mean, even guys have insecurities and just in society, you know, us men, we're not supposed to talk about it. You know, you're a sissy if you talk about your emotions and stuff, but we got them. We get it.
And you just, I mean, not even just talking about my HS, but you loved and accepted me at over 300 pounds. And like, and you're the same. You're the same weight that you were then. Like nothing, you know. And
no, there was just something special about you, and we had so much in common that because I never at that point had dated a plus size girl, and but there was like enough there personality wise, we clicked, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this a shot because. I don't know, that our first phone call was like...
Oh my God.
Yeah, we talked for a while. What was it? OK Cupid.
Yeah, we met on OK Cupid.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't necessarily think that this would be the way that I you know, introduced my husband to my channel, but I feel like this is definitely the most transparent and vulnerable way that I can bring you in, because during a time in my life where I didn't believe I was deserving of love because I had been through a divorce and been through some really, really ugly relationships.
Yeah.
You were not only just a breath of fresh air, but I didn't believe in your goodness because I had experienced so much abuse.
Yeah.
And
shit, this is hard.
I brought tissue.
But I guess an encouragement to all you out there, if a man loves you, he's going to see past your flaws and love you for who you really are, you know, and confidence is sexy, and it is, you know, and I think that goes way further than a perfect body or the perfect face, you know, all that stuff. So one thing that, you know, has been hard for her is she focuses on like the few parts of her body that she's not happy with, and it's been, you know, a challenge to just get you to love yourself, you know,
Right.
and feel good about yourself. And I mean, there's something super attractive of like you coming from a place that you didn't want to be and that you've come this far. And like, you know, it's sexy that you got a goal and that you're trying to better yourself, and you might not be where you want to be today, and that's okay. You know, it takes, you know, they say Rome wasn't built in a day, and that's something I tell her all the time, you know.
Yeah.
It's like some of these things take time, and they might not get better, but you know, it's sometimes we can't change our circumstances or our situation, but we can change our attitude towards those things. And
That's good.
when you truly learn how to feel comfortable in your skin and love your body, a lot of times the right people come into your life. And,
Wow.
and yeah, and I know for me, when you've let me in and like our relationship has blossomed just because I don't feel you holding back as much,
Yeah.
you know? And
I trust you.
yeah.
It took a long time
And
for
it
us
did.
to get here.
It
Like,
did.
we've known each other, 5 years now, and it's just...
Yeah, it's taken a while, but it's definitely been rewarding and worth it. And she's amazing, as you guys all know. And
Thank you, baby. I love you.
I love you too. I wouldn't trade her for the world.
All right, get out of here. Let me
All right.
finish this up.
Peace. Go hang out with my dudes.
Bye. So again, if you guys suffer with hidradenitis suppurativa, or you think that you might struggle with this disease, please understand, again, it's not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. It is not contagious, and it is something that can be treated over time, but it is different for everybody. Everybody's remission can be as little as maybe people that smoke tobacco, quitting smoking. It can be weight loss. For me, it was. It could be dietary changes for myself as well that worked. But truthfully, suffering in silence is not what I want for you. And you have a friend, you have someone that loves you. And I will always try to be a pillar in this community, on YouTube, on any other social platform where this message can get out there for someone who needs to hear it, even if it's just one person. But I think that we can help healing begin in a lot of people if we stop living in shame over this disease and start looking for a cure and start raising awareness for those who suffer in silence. I love you guys with my whole heart, and I am in this with you, and I am praying for your remission, for your healing, and for your self-love. Bye, guys.